A few weeks ago, I sat down to record a podcast episode about losing my soul dog, Huxley. And to be honest, it's been really hard to record again. I'm going through this really intense grief. Huxley was like my child. My husband and I got him right after we got married, and we didn't have children, and we had him, and it like cemented us into this family. And it's been one of those griefs that show the depth of the love, like how proportionate it was to how much we loved him. And showing up in grief is so interesting alone as a phenomenon because you go through it so alone, and it feels like even though everybody goes through grief, it's like a universal feeling. Every single one of us is going to experience loss and heartbreak. It does feel so alone when you're going through it, like other people don't understand in the moment of what you're going through. And, getting into work has been interesting. There's been a few things that felt good. Like it felt good to work with clients. It felt good to, be in my community and work with the groups I have running. But then there's some parts of my work that I was like, I can't do this right now. I cannot, and a lot of it has to do with marketing and showing up in all the places. And I started this year with this incredible content strategy of like, I'm going to be on LinkedIn and YouTube and TikTok and all these places. And it's like, I had to really pause a lot of that. Like, I really needed to just focus on being. And as I'm kind of, not only going through this personally, but, also going through it and wanting to make sense of it for other people so that in case it can help someone, I want to be able to share. I did feel called to come on and share a podcast episode today. And I kind of wanted to talk about some of the things that have been really helping me in my grief and in this loss. And again, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, please go back to that episode where I share about, Huxley's unexpected leaving of this planet. But today I really want to focus on kind of what life has looked like since then and what I'm really leaning into. I can say without a shadow of the doubt, I'm having one of the biggest spiritual awakenings I've had in my life. Like, I've had some pretty big shifts as I obviously went alcohol free and as I, continue learning and growing. But something about this is so deep. It's so vulnerable. And honestly, it feels so private. So some of it I'm not ready to share yet. I don't even know what it is and what it looks like, but it's deep, it's spiritual, it's subconscious. It goes to the deepest cores of what it means to be human. It's my value system, it's my worldview. Like everything feels like up for questioning. Everything feels like topsy-turvy right now, and that things are really, really shifting. And even my identity and how I show up in this world is really, really shifting right now. And I really like to play that out in the private space first. And I know I'll probably tell you eventually about what it is when it kind of cements into something more. But, right now I just know that I'm going through huge changes. I'm, developing so much spiritually. Like it's like all I'm interested in right now, is like the deeper things. I mean, first of all, since, Huxley passed, I couldn't even be home the first week. I had to leave the house constantly, and it wasn't to distract myself or to be away from the spaces that he inhabited. I just wanted to be in the world. I wanted to see the sunsets. I wanted to be at the beach. I wanted to be so up close and contact with nature and just not numb myself, not distract myself. And obviously I don't numb with alcohol. I haven't for years, but there's other ways that, you can kind of check out a bit in life. And I immediately deleted any games from my phone. I wasn't like a big gamer, but I had like a solitaire game that I would play like once a day. It was only like you get one free game on this app, and then after that you have to pay for it. So I just had the free version and I paid one game a day. But I do that when I was in line, or I do that when I was bored and something like that. And there's probably a few too many mindless shows I've watched. I think that sometimes TV can be really uplifting when we're watching something that is helping us learn more about the world, or something that just is very beautiful. And then some TV can be really trashy and, really just about the thrill and the secret and the mystery and stuff like that. And so I really had to reevaluate, like, where am I checking out? This is the season of my life I don't want to check out at all. And I want to be here. I want to sit through all the depths of this pain. I want to sit through the depths of this grief. I want to sit through every raw feeling that I'm having right now. So it's been a really raw, tender moment in my life. And with this big loss, with this big pain, I'll say that these 4 things that I've identified just for now for this podcast, and maybe I'll come up with more later as I kind of reflect more, but right now I can really feel that these 4 things have been really helping me through the loss. And obviously, I already mentioned like being outside, being really present, like being in nature, really thinking through that kind of stuff. And so, the first one is reading. I think I read 14 books last month, and a lot of those were on grief. A lot of those were on pet loss. Again, when you go through something really heartbreaking, when you go through something like a loss, not only are you dealing with the loss and the grief and the sadness, probably the shame, the regret, there's so many feelings like intertwined with it, but you also feel really misunderstood by society. And, as a person who shares my life somewhat publicly, I also got misunderstood by some people online, and that was really heartbreaking too. And so being able to like lean into books on grief and on pet loss and other deeper topics, esoteric topics, more on the psychology of dreams and the subconscious and more on, shamanic practices and more on like these principles that just feel so deep to our human psyche are the kinds of things that I have been really enjoying reading about lately. So I've been really, really into books, and I feel like I'm just everywhere I go, I need to have my book and my journal. And that's, another thing that I've been really getting into in this kind of period of time where, so much is up and down, so much I'm revisiting, so much is getting shaken loose of like, what is my identity? What are my values? What are my worldview? Do I still look up to this person? Like maybe I'm shifting, maybe things are changing. I've been doing dream interpretation. And I read a few books about this, a few from like Jungian analysts, a few by like shamanic dream interpretation. And that has been really cathartic and amazing. And sometimes my dreams are very meaningful. And a few times Huxley's come into my dreams. Like I had one dream pretty soon after he passed where, it came so unexpected and we weren't sure what to do. And he had this dream where he showed me that he had really aggressive cancer. And the dream was so visual, like these cells were multiplying in his body, but he was telling me, but that's not me, mama. That's not me, mama. And it was like he wanted to assure me that no matter what, that even if he didn't pass from that, horrible thing that happened on Memorial Day, it would have happened really soon anyway, and to not like beat myself up and stuff like that. And I've had a few other dreams of his presence. I've also had totally random dreams, and dreams are so interesting because we usually do think that they're super random. And a lot of times I think we wish we had a lot more meaning that we could extract from our dreams, like our sleeping dreams. And it's so interesting because like the work I've been reading and this dream interpretation I'm doing, it's not so simple as to say like, oh, if you dream about a door, it means for sure this. Like it's really personal to you. And you have to understand what are your, subconscious attachments to doors and to, different things that have happened in your life. So I've been going through this process and it's been really fascinating and really interesting. And it's just, it's very like dark and deep. It's like the moon. It's this like part of ourselves that we don't show up in the day. And it's been really fascinating to see like how my subconscious is processing all of this as expressed through my dreams. And I've had some really cool ahas too, like a really cool aha where maybe some idea that I was already starting to think of that day kind of gets answered in a dream or shows me like, oh, this is spot on, or this is something you need to look at more. And I don't even think I can share an example because dreams are just so random that I don't feel eloquent enough to be able to share an example that would make sense. But it's been cathartic. I'll just say that. It's been really healing to, kind of feel like no matter what, every night I go on an adventure. I do dream every night. I go on this adventure. Something inside my subconscious is trying to speak to me through this dream. And that's where, psychoanalysis and Jungian analysts and dream interpretation and shamanic dream interpretation really, work off of. It's not just a psychological theory. Like indigenous societies have been doing this forever, about how our dreams are important and how they're a reflection of what's happening in our subconscious and what we're supposed to learn or do or anything like that. And it's interesting too, because sometimes like you'll have figures in your dream, but it doesn't mean you're actually dreaming about that person. That person might just represent something to you. So there's just so much like peeling back of the layers. And, a lot of times if I don't know what to, write in my journal, or if I'm just like kind of starting the day, I'll just start there. I'll just be like, what did I dream about? What can I learn from this? And again, I've had seasons in my life where I barely look at my dreams, or only the ones that really felt like they meant something, not the like random silly ones, but even the random silly ones I'm kind of putting through this lens, and it's been really interesting what I've been learning about myself. So that's been really, really helpful as like a tool that I've been using to heal in my grief. The third one is really learning to listen to my intuition and from signs that I'm getting from Huxley. Now, I do believe that we get signs from like our spirit guides, from the, loved ones in the afterlife. I have believed in that idea. But it's also really easy to be a skeptic and, not be sure if what you're seeing is just a coincidence or you're just making something up. And I first felt it when my grandma passed, and she gave me signs, the day that she passed, and then thereafter a few signs as well. And right after Huxley passed, at first I did see, like, literally when I walked out of the vet, it was almost midnight, and I saw his face in the clouds, like, really clearly. And that felt like such a beautiful sign. And then the next day, it felt like I didn't get any signs from him. And I was like, oh my gosh, me and Huxley were so close. Like, I thought I would have gotten a sign from him right away. But then after that, after that one day, he has been showing me signs like almost every single day. Crazy signs. I kind of shared a few in the last podcast, so I don't really want to go into all the signs he's been showing me, but we have like a flower that he shows me. There's numbers that he shows me. His hair, it's so beautiful. I know from a logical perspective or a skeptic's perspective that his hair is going to be in the house, and we're still going to find it for a while, obviously. But it's like the moments when it happens, like I will be bawling my eyes out, and all of a sudden, my hand that has already been washed, that didn't have a hair on it like 2 minutes ago, has this huge hair on it from him. And it's like, he's talking to me, he's making the hair dance in the wind and land in these places at the most opportune times. And it goes well beyond that. There's been so many signs through rainbows. There's been just almost like magical miracles that he's shown me too. And he's playful. Like, he's talking to me a lot, a lot. And I'll say more than my grandma, and we were really, my grandma and I were close as I was growing up. She was part of like raising me. She was my mother figure. But, in the last few years, she was in Poland. So we were close, but we weren't like close in that moment, I would say, when she passed. And so Huxley's giving me so many signs, so many. I write them down in my journal when they happen, and I make like a little star just to note them. And I started even creating a list of all of them and like a little S so I can always go back in the journal. But it's always so uncanny, and it just makes me feel like I'm loved. It makes me feel like I really can trust this. And I think part of it's too is like, am I silly? Am I reading into things too much? Am I seeing things where I shouldn't see? By the way, I recommend the book Signs by, oh, I'm going to mess up her name, but it's like Lynn something. Lynn something. One of my clients got me that book. It's amazing. It's like she is a medium or has some telepathic ability. She can connect with people who are, deceased, and she shows people what their loved ones are saying, and also shows them how they've been talking to them the whole time with signs. So it's a really beautiful read. But one of the things, the part of it too about, receiving signs from, whether it's your loved ones that have passed, whether it's from your spirit guides, whether it's from God, whatever you describe it, even just your higher self, is that you have to believe in your intuition that this means something. You know what I mean? And it's not just being a crazy person who sees signs everywhere. It's like really believing that when my intuition is pointing something out to me, it's important. And I think with that, I have been really developing a stronger relationship with my intuition, which got a lot stronger, obviously, when I went alcohol free. And there's been really cool things that my intuition or source, God, has shown me as these like divine moments of what I'm supposed to know in that moment. But it's been really cool to kind of, really deepen that. And, whether it's through muscle testing or whether it's through just asking and hearing the answer, like really starting to trust it so much. And sometimes I ask myself, like, do I just hear what I want to believe? Because there's always going to be the part of you that's skeptical. And I know that on the day that Huxley passed, his spleen burst and he was bleeding out internally and dying. And he gave us like no indication of that. Like, he didn't squeal. He wasn't like looking like he was in pain. Like, he looked pretty normal, besides having really pale gums. So it was like we didn't know, what happened. We didn't know that he was even in danger until we did, and we Googled it and we took him and rushed him to the vet. But I remember when we were still kind of questioning it, like, oh, is Huxley okay? He seems kind of slow. Like, what's going on? And I asked myself, is Huxley okay? And in that moment, I got the biggest, like, no. And it's like, that's not what I wanted to hear, right? That's not what I wanted to hear. And it was the strongest, deepest, like, no I've ever heard in my life. Like, it was such a big knowing. And I knew that. I knew that. Something told me before I knew logically, that not only is he not okay, but that I'm going to lose him. I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but in February, I think what was so shocking with Huxley's passing is like, to us, he appeared so healthy. He was 11 and a half, and his breed usually has a life expectancy of 12 years. And I don't know if I was just naive, but I just didn't think he would pass before 12. I just didn't even think it was like a possibility, really. And I remember in February, I got this really big intuitive knowing that he was going to die. And I started like taking selfies with him every day, and I started like loving on him more, and I started crying even in February to think of the idea of losing him. But I still thought it was going to be like a year or two from then. I didn't think it meant like he's dying now. And then my husband was like, okay, you're scaring him, or you're overwhelming him with your love. So I kind of pulled back, and I started to slowly forget about that, and be like, why would I prepare for his death when he's super healthy? He's not showing us any signs of really slowing down or anything wrong. Like, when my first dog died from a tragic car accident, like a car hit him, I never really had the experience of watching an older dog, slow down. And so I wasn't sure what to look out for, but I thought there'd be signs. I thought that there would be something, and he would, yes, obviously, he was slower on walks than he was when he was younger, and he didn't like going up hills anymore. But it's like, I thought there'd be so many more signs, and that we would have this like long drawn out process to like start saying goodbye to him, And so that feeling that I had in February was so spot on. Like, my intuition was trying to tell me, and then like my logical brain persuaded me to be like, well, he's fine. He's healthy. There's nothing to worry about right now. He has a lot of energy. Like, nothing's physically wrong with him. We just took him to the vet in February. He had a full workup. He had full blood work done. Like, everything was fine. And sadly, like, the vet told us that this kind of aggressive cancer happens so fast. It probably developed after February. And I think like a part of me knew, And it's like I didn't want to believe it, and I didn't want to read into it, but my intuition was telling me. So anyway, this goes back to this idea of like, is our intuition only what we want to hear? I don't think so. Because what it's been showing me is it's also the things I don't want to hear. I don't want to be true. But like learning to trust it, learning to make decisions, quicker from it, to be able to just trust that there is like a spiritual side of me that is so wise, that is like God. It is connected to the divine, and that I can trust that, and that it's not always going to be easy to access, right? There is going to be that human self. There is going to be that logical part of your brain. There is going to be fear that, masks itself as like your inner voice, but it's not. It's just doubt and fear. But it's been really cool to lean into that, and to just even making certain decisions around that. And especially as I'm dealing with like a big shift in my worldview and my values and my identity, I don't know what it looks like yet, but I have to trust that my intuition is guiding it, and that my spirit guides are guiding it, and that Huxley's guiding it too. So that's been something that's been really helpful for me. And, signs are something that you can lean on whether you're going through grief or not. You could get signs from beyond. You could also get signs from, spirit guides. Like, it's a really cool subject matter. Let's just say that. And the last thing I'll say that's really helping me, the fourth thing that's really helping me process and go through grief, is writing. My journal has been my best friend. It's never left my side. I am writing so much. I am like really expressing all my emotions. I'm, writing about Huxley. I even wrote poems. Like, I can't remember the last time I wrote a poem. I was probably in high school, and I used to love that kind of stuff. I loved writing and expressing myself. And obviously, I still write a lot now. I am writing. I'm a professional writer, I'm a published author, but I haven't written like a poem in a long time. And I challenged myself to write a few poems, and I did about Huxley. And it was like beautiful and so cathartic. And it's like every way that expression wants to, come out of me right now, I'm just trying to honor. And especially because like journaling and writing, I'm also writing my second book. It's so private. I don't know what to make sense of this. I don't know how to have all the answers right now, but I don't have to have all that figured out. And being able to like share ideas and concepts and things that my subconscious is swirling around and the things that are happening in my dreams through the process of writing has been so beautiful. I'm also working through a book right now that has like typically some kind of prompt, like a pet loss grief book that has like a prompt that listen to or follow every day. So that's been nice as well. So it's like I have my dream interpretation, I have, like writing about Huxley, I have my book. And honestly, that has been a saving grace too. It's like writing a book is not easy, and oftentimes I feel a lot of procrastination around it. I won't say it's been super easy, but it's just like that's what my soul is craving. I've spent so many days going to a coffee shop that is perched with a view of the ocean. It has a street first. So first the view is of the cars, but then you see the ocean. And that has been like a special ritual I've been doing. And I feel like I'm behind in some ways of some of the goals that I set out for myself at the beginning of the year. But I also feel like I'm doing more important work right now. Like this book is more important. And even though I'm behind in some of the other ways that I like to show up and create and, move my company forward, this book is really important. And because it's about ancestors and our connection with something bigger than us and meaning, it's like really timely to be writing about as I'm going through loss and as I'm going through grief. And I'm really thankful for that. I am really thankful for that. So thank you for letting me express myself and what I'm going through. Might not always be coherent right now. We have some incredible guest episodes coming up for this summer. I have interviewed some really top experts that I can't wait to bring their wisdom to you. Thank you for following along. Thank you so much in your expression of love and sympathy as well. I've gotten over, I think it's like 300 or 400 messages at this point of people sharing just their love and sympathy for what I'm going through with the loss of Huxley and sharing stories about their pets and just really making me feel like I'm not alone in this. I got some nasty comments too. We're not even going to go there. But out of the two nasty comments, I have just been showered with an outpouring of love. And I just wanted to thank this community. Thank you so much. It's so meaningful that we're part of each other's lives. Thank you for listening to the show. Thank you for being in the programs and the containers that we have. Thank you for following me on Instagram and sharing, your love there. Thank you for being an active agent of change as well as you share your message and your mission with the world. Thank you for having the bravery to question alcohol. Like this community means everything to me. And I appreciate you guys so much, so, so much. So thank you so much for listening. If you feel like any of these episodes speak to you, feel free to write me anytime. I love to hear from you.